if I can ask staff to start recording the meeting. You had your chance, you missed it. Good morning, everyone. I'm Bob Tucker. I'm the Chief Operating Officer of the Chicago Community Loan Fund, and I don't know how it happened, but someone at CMAP made the incredibly poor decision of making me the chair of this incredibly impressive group, other than its chair. So I'd like to call the committee meeting to order, and I have to give the legal disclaimer, if you will, that as permitted by the governor's disaster declaration of March 4, 2022, the determination has been made that an in-person meeting is not practical or prudent for this committee to meet in person. To ensure a transparent and open meeting as possible, we will post the meeting materials approximately 1 week in advance. We'll provide a recording of this meeting. Again, we are all being recorded, linked on our website, and we'll take all votes by roll call. Any questions on that? All right, staff has a few additional virtual meeting logistical announcements before we take the roll. I'm going to turn it over to staff.
Thank you, Chairman Tucker. So yes, this meeting is being recorded. Please use the mute function when not speaking to help eliminate excessive background noise. I think we all are used to that by now, but if you're on the phone, or you have the mute button if you're using the screen, if you're on the phone, you can press *6 to mute and unmute yourself. To members of the public, if you have a question during the meeting, please use the chat box, that we are monitoring that. And if you wish to address the committee during the public comment agenda item, you can certainly indicate your desire to do so in the chat box. And members of the committee, when making a motion, please include your name so staff can properly record it. And Mr. Chair, that concludes my meeting announcements. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Tony. Appreciate it. Any questions for Tony or staff on that? All right, if we can take the roll call now.
Yes, I'd be happy to do that, and please correct me if I pronounce anyone's name wrong. But we'll start with Chair Bob Tucker.
Yeah.
Oh yes, and please say here when I call your name. Vice Chair Kim Porter.
Here.
Adam Ballard.
Here.
Dion Bowe. Okay. Peter Kretikos.
Here.
Thank you. Christy De Laurentiis.
Here.
Joan Fox. Kendra Freeman.
Here.
John Furr.
Here.
Veronica Gonzalez. Kevin Kramer.
Here.
Marissa Lewis.
Here.
Tiffany McDowell. Shannon Mcgee.
Here.
Michael Myers.
Here.
Oboye Reed.
Here.
Caitlin Ritter. Darnell Shields.
Here.
Jennifer Tamman.
Here.
Michael Horsting.
Here.
Tara Orban.
Good morning. Here.
Good morning. Mr. Chair, we have a quorum. We can proceed.
Thanks, Tony. It's a great group. I know a lot of you, and I'm certainly looking forward to meeting those I don't know. And we might be talking about this later about when that may, in fact, be in person. As you see, we have a very full agenda in front of us today. I would say this meeting could best be described as a lot of housekeeping, but it's necessary to get this committee rolling. So I would ask, are there any changes anyone would have to the agenda today? All right. Hearing none, let's move on to the next item. We are very lucky to have Executive Director Erin Ailman with us today, and Erin has a few words for the committee. Erin?
Thanks so much, Bob. First, I just want to start by welcoming everyone. Thank you so much for serving on this important committee. I want to officially thank Bob Tucker for serving as the chair of the committee and Kim Porter for serving as vice chair. You'll hear a little bit more this morning about our new committees and the thought behind their creation. You know, and it's really important to me that we're thinking critically about where CMAP can leverage our knowledge, our expertise, and our resources to help advance the 2050 plan goals and objectives here. Because this is our first meeting, I thought maybe it would make sense for us to go around and do a little bit of introduction. So I know you all just said your name, and but we for those of you who don't know each other, I think it'd be nice to hear folks. So maybe in the same order, I'm trying to think about what the most efficient way to do this is. Tony, do you think we should go in the same order of the roll call?
We can do that for sure.
If you could help me here. Oh, actually, there we go. We've got slides for this. So, well, let me start. I'm Erin Alleman. I'm Executive Director here at the Chicago Metropolitan Agency for Planning. And then I was thinking we could each share just one thing that they're looking forward to in the spring. And for me, it's really, my kids love Easter egg hunts. So we usually do that at my dad's house in Southwest Michigan when the flowers are blooming. So that's one of my favorite spring activities that our family looks forward to. With that, I'll turn it over to Bob.
Great, thank you, Erin. So I'm Bob Tucker. I mentioned I'm the Chief Operating Officer for the Chicago Community Loan Fund. I've been there for about 7 years. Oh gosh, I'm so looking forward to running the Riverwalk in the morning. I always love running the Riverwalk, and I'm scared to death running on ice, so I've not been running a lot in the winter. But that is something I just absolutely love doing. I'm gonna turn it next to Kim. Kim.
Sorry about that. I am Kim Porter. I am the Director of Community Development with the Village of Woodridge, Illinois. I've been here now for just over 4 years. And what I am most looking forward to in the spring is I have been Division II Chicago Pickleball Champ. And we start up in April, the end of April. So I'm looking forward to getting back with my league and playing pickleball again. So that is what I am really looking forward to coming up next month. Thank you. Oh, and let's see, I'll turn it over to, may I turn it over to Adam Ballard?
Good morning, everyone. Adam Ballard. I am an Associate State Director at AARP Illinois. Previously worked at Access Living for several years. I've been at AARP for just over a year now. I was previously on the Land Use and Housing Committee here at CMAP, and I'm glad to join you all here. We went back to the office this past week, and we'll be going in 2 or 3 days a week. I'm working from home today, as I think you can tell, but we'll be in 2 or 3 days a week going forward. And I'm excited about meeting my colleagues who I'd been interacting with over the past year, just on a screen. So they're all 3D now, which is refreshing, and just getting into the work even further in person with my new colleagues and also with all of you. Thanks.
Thank you, Adam. It's great to have you on this committee. It's great to have you on the prior one, too.
Thanks.
Caitlin Ritter.
Let's see, is Caitlin on the line?
No?
Nope, okay. Keep moving. Darnell.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Darnell Shields. I serve as the Executive Director of an organization called Austin Coming Together, based on the west side of Chicago. We're a collective impact agency helping the community to thrive and improve quality. In there now, going on actually 11 years from its inception. And one thing that I am looking forward to this spring, I recently purchased a home in the Gilwood area of Austin, and after doing a lot of interior renovations in the house, I'm looking forward to getting outside and tackling my backyard, renovating my deck and all of those things. So ready to be a weekend warrior. And I will pass it to Dion.
Is Dion with us?
Because I think she's looking.
I see her.
I'm here, but I don't know this system. So GoToMeetings is a little new for me. Sorry, guys, I could not get off of mute quick enough. Thank you, Darnell, for passing it over to me. Hello, everyone. I'm Dion Bowe, Vice President of Urban Development with Main Street America. I've been with the center for 5.5 years. My role, I'm sorry, I didn't hear all of the questions, but my role here is to really extend the Main Street America approach to big cities that are interested in understanding how to implement the approach in neighborhood commercial districts. It sounded as if when Darnell was talking about what he's excited about for the spring, I'm just going to riff. I think so. Okay. My birthday is Friday, so I'm excited about that. And I'm excited to actually take a real vacation with my family. We're going on a family vacation in a couple of weeks. Very excited about that. And very similar to Darnell, I really want to get my backyard like renovated. And I can't wait to be out, like just on the back and spending time with people. So really glad to be here. And I think I will pass it on to, I can't necessarily see that.
You know, Deanna,
Jennifer.
Yep. Thanks, Deanne. Hey, good morning, everybody. Jennifer Tamman. I am a senior manager with Ernst & Young. I work out of Chicago, of course, in the credits and incentives practice. I've been with EY for a little over 3 years. And my focus really is doing what I've done for the past 20 years. So I work with a lot of real estate developers, a lot of municipalities, as well as companies that are looking to do anything from manufacturing or office centers, really to work with clients to maximize their investment and optimize their investment through the application of credits and incentives programs, both at the state, local, and federal levels. A lot of what I've done over the last 20 plus years is really focused on hyper-local incentives like tax increment financing and leveraging other resources that come out of local investment, and really just trying to bring the parties together when it's a good deal to leverage it in a way so that it works for the community, of course, works for the investor, who I am oftentimes representing. But it's great to see so many faces. Kim, it's wonderful to see you. I had no idea that I was in the presence, of a pickleball champ. I recently started playing pickleball, not at your level at all, but I didn't know anything about it. So I looked at a YouTube video to know what the rules were about 5 minutes before I started playing. And the other women that I was playing with were laughing at me. I'm like, well, I'm very competitive, and I want to be knowing the rules so I can, win. But anyway, it's super fun. Great to see you. And Darnell, we're neighbors. I live around Oak Park Avenue and North Avenue. So we're not too far from Galewood. So like you, I'm looking forward to getting out and riding my bike with my kids, looking forward to baseball and softball season and just being outside. So good to see all of you. Thank you for including me in this committee.
Nice. I'll invite you over when I get done with the backyard.
I like that. There's plenty of goodies I can bring as a housewarming gift along North Avenue. A lot of good businesses.
let's see, is Joan on?
No.
No, okay. John Furr?
Sure. Good morning, everyone. I'm John Furr, the Executive Director of Education Systems Center at Northern Illinois University, but our center is based in Chicago. I guess this spring I've got some college visits scheduled with my middle son, so I'm excited to get out and explore some future opportunities with him. Turn it over to Kendra.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Kendra Freeman, Vice President of Program and Strategy with the Metropolitan Planning Council. Excited to be part of this reconfiguration of the committee, and what I'm looking forward to is getting back on my bike. Last year I started riding with Black Girls Do Bike, so it's a wonderful biking organization, so I'm looking forward to reuniting with my sisters and hitting those bike trails. And I'll pass it over to Kevin.
Thanks, Kendra. Kevin Kramer here. I'm the Director of Economic Development with Hoffman Estates. I've been here almost 9 years, which is an eternity for millennials. So I count that as a win. Something I'm looking forward to this spring, I guess, would just be, it's oddly enough, spring cleaning and like opening my windows again to have a breeze come through. And I have many kids, so we accumulate and hoard stuff, and especially through the winter. So it's time to just get rid of stuff too. So spring cleaning, actually. And with that, I'll pass to Christy.
Hi, good morning. Christy De Laurentiis. I'm the Executive Director of South Suburban Mayors and Managers Association. We're a council of government representing 45 municipalities in the South Cook, Northern Will County area. One thing I'm excited about is we passed an important priority, a legislative priority out of committee last week. We're hoping that we make progress in the next 2 weeks before session adjourns. benefiting the south suburbs. And if anybody's interested, you can go to my website and our website and look at it. On a personal note, I have dogs. I am joyful to get them back out walking on bike trails and navigating new neighborhoods to enjoy the environs. Thanks. I'll pass it on to Marissa.
Hello all, Marissa Lewis. I am the Board Liaison and Chief Policy Officer for the Chicago Cook Workforce Partnership. The partnership is a nonprofit. We operate the largest public workforce development network in the country. And we administer the WIOA system, the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act system for Chicago and Cook County, in addition to operating other initiatives. I've been here since our launch in 2012, so 10 years. And what I am looking forward to is, a lot of you have mentioned sort of spring sports for your kids. And in particular, I'm looking forward to just all of the things this spring that I feel like are the most normal that they've been in 2 years. So, yeah, they did soccer last year, but it felt a little bit weird. So this year it's going to be, they're having dance recitals again. They're doing kind of the end of year events. So I'm excited about the fact that things appear to be really close to normal, knock on wood. And then this may sound weird, but I'm also excited. I feel like conferences picked up like within the last 4 weeks. Like there were no conferences for years and years, and then all of a sudden everyone's decided to go in person. So again, knock on wood that this continues, but I'm excited to start traveling again and seeing people face to face that I have not been able to see for a long time, including all of you, hopefully someday soon. So Michael from RTA.
Yeah, thanks, Marissa. Good morning, everybody. I'm Michael with the Regional Transportation Authority, and I'm the manager of the local planning group at the authority. And I'm also just super excited to be here with you all today. A couple of things come to my mind about excitement with spring. One is something we've heard already, is just getting back out on that bicycle in a more leisurely manner rather than maybe a commute to work, which is starting to happen again. But also balcony time. We have a small balcony, but we really do it up. And so it's just, getting those plants and those flowers back out and just hanging out on the balcony again with the windows open. So really excited about that. And next on the list is whoever's at the top of the next slide, Michael Myers.
Good morning. My name is Michael Myers. I'm Director of Business Development for the Transportation, Distribution, and Logistics Industries here at World Business Chicago. We're the economic development arm of the city. I've been here since about I come from an urban planning, economic development background. I used to work for Ernest Sawyer Enterprises, just helping some of our clients with the different city and county incentives out here. And I'm really excited about joining this committee. I'm from Atlanta, Georgia originally, and lived in Chicago for about 11 years, or 10 years, excuse me. So, and just really excited about getting back out, plans off this summer, and learning pickleball. I'm just so excited now to hear so many people are picking up pickleball. I used to play tennis. I'm a big tennis player. So, and I'm excited to hear there's a new version of tennis that might put less pressure on me and my knees and as I get old. So look forward to getting out there. Nice meeting everyone. And I hope we do big things on this committee. I'm looking forward to seeing the product that comes out of us meeting, and hopefully, everyone taking us seriously and implementing what we do. So excited to meet everyone. I'll pass it on to Olin Tuji.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Thank you, Michael. Hello, everyone. My name is Obai. Everyone calls me by my middle name. Full name is Olatunji Obai Reed. I am the founding president and CEO of Equiticity. We're operationalizing racial equity by harnessing our collective power through research, advocacy programs, and community mobility rituals to improve the lives of Black, Brown, and Indigenous people in our society. I am excited for spring because Equiticity's community mobility rituals start in May. That includes community bike rides, neighborhood walking tours, group scooter rows, public transit excursions, and cyclovia style open street festivals. So I'm excited to get those rolling again. We'll be intensifying our work in North Lawndale on the west side of Chicago, and as well doing a host of walking tours and community rides across the south and west sides of Chicago. And forgive the background noise. I am in Denver with my niece and nephews. Thank you, and I will pass it to Peter.
Yeah, good morning. I'm Peter Kretikos. I run a small policy collaborative in workforce and economic development called the Institute for Work and the Economy. We started nearly 22 years ago as part of Northern, and then coming full circle, we're housed with John Furr at his office downtown. Although we're not associated directly with Northern, but he's gracious enough to house our office there. What I'm excited about, we're doing Christmas in April. So we're finally making the trip out east to see at least half our grandkids soon out in Boston, and with our 2 dogs. And then as far as other things are concerned, looking forward to getting on the road again. Somebody mentioned conferences. That's our mainstay in terms of staying connected since we are national. We have initiatives in entrepreneurship we're starting up. We have a partnership with National Urban League on some things. We'll be launching our podcast on the many futures of work in a couple of weeks. And we're heavily invested in some strategic planning internally. And as mentioned, the birthday, mine was in January and I'm still in mourning over that. So it depends on how old you are as to whether you are happy about it or you just wonder about, longevity. Anyway, I'll turn it on over to Shannon Mcgee.
Thanks, Peter. Hi, everybody. I'm Shannon Mcgee. I'm the Director of Community Impact and Engagement at MHub. We're a 501c3 innovation center focused on commercializing startups that are connected to a physical product. I've been here for 4 years. We've been open for 5, and my role is to ensure that the wealth and the jobs created by the development of new technologies is distributed equitably. So I lead that focus across the organization. And I'm so glad to hear all of the sports and activity because I'm excited for the beach volleyball season. I have MHub's team game ball on my desk. So we're really excited for the beaches to open up and to be able to hit the sand. We are always looking for subs. So if anybody's interested, send me an email. I'll pass it over to Tara.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Tara Orban. I am the Chief Engineer for the Project Development Bureau at the Cook County Department of Transportation and Highways. And, the Cook County, we work very closely with CMAP as well as the state and other, partners on advancing transportation projects, whether for, local or, regional improvements. And, our department has a lot of synergies that are consistent with Onto 2050, such as pursuing equity and, maintaining and, modernizing a transportation system that works for everyone. So I am just delighted to be with all of you today with such a talented and diverse group. I look forward to working with you. And in terms of, this spring, one pandemic hobby that I picked up that I think is going to be around to stay is gardening, whether it's, I started a perennial garden and also a vegetable and herb garden. So really looking forward to getting out there after the danger of frost has passed. And I'll let you know in some fall meetings what kind of harvest I have here. And at this time, I'll turn it over to Tiffany.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Tiffany McDowell, representing the Chicagoland Equity Network and also YWCA Evanston North Shore Equity Institute. I have been working alongside several of you, the Chicagoland Equity Network, as we coordinated and convened that, oh goodness, probably about 7 years ago, I think, and advancing a common equity agenda across Chicagoland. And so it's great to continue to do that work alongside you all here on this committee. I am definitely looking forward to getting out and about, and I always love the lake and being out on the water. So I'm excited for any outdoor activities and learn. I guess I need to learn pickleball too. So I am just interested to see what that looks like, but also getting out and about after being kind of isolated from folks for the better part of 2 years. So I will pass it to Veronica.
Morning, everybody. Veronica Gonzalez with the Nhp Foundation. We are BIPOC governed affordable housing developer, primarily with our portfolio in the Mid-Atlantic, but the last 5 years moving west towards Chicago and also into Texas. So, excuse me. So that's what keeps me busy by day. In the evenings and in the spring, I always look forward to getting outside. I say to people, Chicago's a tough place to live because you spend 6 months shivering and another 6 months figuring out how you can get everything that is great about Chicago packed into your schedule. So add to that 2 teenage kids and you can imagine what a busy spring. Pass it back.
Thanks, Veronica. I know we have a couple other people that have been on screen here. So Bob, if you don't mind, I'd like to ask Austin and Tony to also share, and then Amy McGeehan, who you'd see if we were in the office. She's our chief of staff. So Austin, do you want to start?
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Austin Edwards. I'm a senior policy analyst here at CMAP. I've been here for about 5 years working on all things around the regional economy, which is pretty apt for today's discussion. And one thing I'm looking forward to spring is I'm taking a road trip with some college friends that I haven't gotten to see much in the last 2 years. So I'll hand it over to Tony.
Good morning, everybody. Nice to see you all. Nice to see so many friends. Tony Mano, I'm a principal planner here at CMAP, co-liaison with Austin. I've been here just over 6 years in the planning division, focus on local economic development, transportation planning and funding, a little bit of real estate development guidance as well. Very excited to be here. Thank you so much for joining. I do not play pickleball, but we do have a pickleball court on the rooftop of the old post office. So if when we do have a meeting in person, maybe we can have a post committee pickleball meeting. Maybe I'd be looking forward to learning how to play pickleball with all of you, but I'm also looking forward to getting my backyard ready as well and getting on my bike with my wife and kids this summer. So thank you. Erin, should I turn it over to maybe Laura?
Oh, you know, I was just gonna stick with the folks that had their cameras on here. So Amy, if you wanna just say hello too.
Hello, my name is Amy McGee. I've worked at CMAP for about 2.5 years, but worked in community and economic development and administration for many, many years in various local governments in Michigan and Illinois. So happy to meet all of you here in this area. And I have to say I played pickleball once last summer, and I think my elbow hurt for 3 months. So evidently I need elbow reinforcement exercises before I try again.
You got the infamous pickleball. It's like you get tennis elbow, you got pickleball elbow. We call it pickleball.
Well, Kim, maybe you can give us some pointers after our first in-person meeting. Hopefully we'll be able to have that next time. So I want to just say before I turn it back over to Bob, thank you so much for sharing. It's nice to hear what everybody's looking forward to. We have an exciting agenda. There is a lot of sort of operational stuff that we're going to cover today, but the staff is going to talk a little bit about your strategic direction for our committees that we've been working on here as staff at the agency, and specifically how the Regional Economy Committee fits into our work and all of the things that we do at CMAP here. And then the staff is going to lead the committee through a discussion about some of the approaches that we're taking to address the objectives of the regional economy focus area of our strategic plan. And so there'll be some, if we do this and we do that, will we achieve the outcomes that we're looking towards? So again, I am energized to see so many lovely people participating in our work. We really are trying to make committees more engaging and actively help guide the work that we have going on in meaningful ways. So thank you, Bob and Kim. I'll turn it back to the chair.
Thank you, Erin, and thank you so much for joining us today. We're really lucky to have you. I wasn't kidding when I said this group is an impressive group, pickleball included. Darnell and Jennifer, please invite me over for that backyard after work strategy session. I'm not too far from you two either. So there were minutes included in the packet. Are there any requested changes or corrections to the minutes? All right, hearing none, can I get a motion and a second to approve the minutes, please?
Actually, Mr. Chair, I believe we do not have to approve the minutes because this is the first committee meeting, so there were no minutes technically to approve.
I guess you're right. The old meeting was a different committee, wasn't it? Great. All right. Well, then let's just move it along. We can move on then to the next item, I should say, CMAP strategic direction and the committees. Tony, I'm going to kick it over to you, I believe.
Thank you very much. Hello again, everybody. So we wanted to talk a little bit about the role this committee plays in our work, and how you all are going to help us move regional economic issues along. Basically, looking at the overarching strategic vision, and we're going to talk about that in a little bit today, which Aaron just gave you a preview of. But you are all going to play a fairly key role in connecting our work on the regional economy with our core values and also the work of the regional partners and stakeholders. So Austin and I are the co-liaisons, but I also want to acknowledge that Dominic Argumedo will be joining us as a liaison in a few weeks, taking over some of my duties. So you may see a handful of different faces helping us get through these committees. And I also just wanted to quickly acknowledge everybody at the agency that helped with the restructuring of these committees. There were a lot of us that had a hand in this, and so it's really great that we were able to do this, and want to thank you once again because we're all very excited to be here. So Austin, you could probably cruise through to.
Hi, I'm Jane Grover, the Public Engagement Principal at CMAP. In 2021, the agency embarked on an internal exercise to look at our work and our resources and think through how to guide and focus our work on the implementation of the Onto 2050 Comprehensive Regional Plan. As with everything, we started with our core values: to serve with passion, pursue equity, foster collaboration, lead with excellence, and drive innovation. We are also guided by CMAP's vision, an inclusive and thriving region, and by our mission to serve the people of the region by driving innovation, fostering shared action, and advancing toward a common vision. We pursue this mission mindful of future generations for whom we plan and who will become the next stewards of our regional assets. CMAP's strategic planning process led us to a theory of change for our work that connects our actions to the outcomes we seek in implementing the Onto 2050 plan. It sounds simple, but it's a way to reorient our efforts toward the impact of our work. We want to implement the Onto 2050 plan by achieving goals in 3 core areas: transportation, economic competitiveness, and climate. This is where CMAP can be influential and have impact. Here's our 5-year framework with the overarching vision, our mission, and goals in those 3 core areas. Again, transportation, regional economy, and climate. We want to clearly communicate what CMAP's lane is and how we make a difference there. While much of the agency's work will stay the same, with your guidance, we are seeking opportunities to have more impact. These goals and objectives connect to the agency's committees and the important work they do, and this is where you come in. In February, the CMAP board approved a committee structure that aligns our 3 focus areas with specific objectives. This committee is one of several formal standing committees of the CMAP board. These committees are public bodies subject to the Illinois Open Meetings Act and governed by bylaws. The agency will also convene working groups with stakeholders and experts for guidance directly tied to specific projects and initiatives in the agency's work plan. This battery of working groups will be structured to remove barriers that would otherwise prevent people from participating, such as logistics and distance, so that we can broaden and deepen CMAP's community engagement. Let's get to our objectives for the goals in each of those 3 focus areas. What are our objectives for a transportation system that works for everyone? It's strategic funding investments, a maintained and modern transportation system, and improved travel safety. Our transportation committee will continue to guide how we achieve those objectives for our transportation goal. If our goal for a regional economy is to build a robust and inclusive economy, then the objectives within CMAP's lane are inclusive growth and increasing access to economic opportunities. The work of the Regional Economy Committee will be tied directly to that goal and to those objectives. and we are purposeful to include in the committee's membership new voices and geographical and subject matter diversity. And to achieve our climate goal, CMAP's work will seek to reduce greenhouse gas emissions from transportation, to build a stronger network to handle flooding and extreme weather, and protect and sustainably manage our water resources. As with the Regional Economy Committee, our Climate Committee will focus on where this agency can leverage its resources to achieve those objectives. We will look to the committee members to guide the agency, represent those affected by climate challenges and solutions, and connect the regional dots on climate initiatives. We also expect to connect each committee's work to the others, where we find a logical nexus and where the agency could benefit from more cross-fertilization. These improvements to our committee structure are designed to focus CMAP's work and create more opportunities to use the experience and insights of regional communities and stakeholders such as you. We need to hear from our constituencies and find meaningful ways to sustain their engagement and remove barriers to participating. CMAP's committees are an important part of the agency's public engagement. Thank you for agreeing to join the committee and share your expertise and perspectives to advance the agency's work and to serve Northeastern Illinois.
Excellent.
Thanks, Bob. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say that was terrific. I was going to see if anyone had questions for staff on any of that. All right. Now I'll turn it back to staff.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. That was Jane Grover, a principal with our engagement team. So next, I want to just quickly go over some of the purpose and some of the duties of this committee with all of you. And then at the end of this section, we will ask that we approve the schedule for the next handful of meetings this year. The next slide, please. Thank you, Austin. So you all do vital work in the development, housing, human services areas, and we want to draw on your networks and influence. So as a standing committee, you will help contribute to our mission, support the implementation of our strategic direction, and of course, long-range transportation planning, by including but not limited to the things listed on this slide right here. We are all very excited to have you help us as we work through everything related to regional economy. I think it will discuss throughout these meetings, as much as CMAP's work on economic opportunity and growth definitely relates to our transportation work. Input on the programs we develop across multiple years to implement the regional plan, of course. This includes current work on a regional collaboration for inclusive economic development, modernizing the tax system, support reinvestment in the region's disinvested communities, and advancing housing choice and other projects. We, of course, represent communities across the 7 counties, including disinvested communities, and we hope that the committee reflects that. Next slide, please. So we definitely want to tap your knowledge and experience. We want to ensure that we're collaborating effectively with important partners such as you all and your organizations and others in your networks for sure. They'll be a part of our work here where we will want to create other subcommittees and advisory groups and such to talk about specific issues. And I think we'll all be looking to you to help us identify who some other folks could be that we could talk to throughout the region that touch many of the issues that we'll be discussing throughout these committee meetings. Let's see. Next slide, please. We want you to hold us accountable. That's for sure, as we go through and talk about these issues. You'll help us keep in mind our core values throughout all of this work. And then our plan here is to annually report our activities to the board in the second quarter of each calendar year. Next slide, please. So our goal was to have between 20 and 25 regional members of this committee to represent a geographic and demographic diversity, and of course, on a broad range of economy-related issues. Of course, everybody resides in the CMAP region, and right now we have 21 members that have been appointed by our executive director, Aaron Alleman. Yes, and so of course, it's a fantastic group, and we're so happy that so many of you could make it first thing on a Monday morning. The next slide, please. Okay, so we do have a chair, Bob Tucker. We have a vice chair, Kim Porter. They're both voting members of this body, and as most committee structures are, if the chair is unable to attend the meeting, the vice chair will run the meeting. And we decided to put term limits here too, so there'll be no more, not serve more than 2 one-year terms. We're glad that they both could make it this morning. And lastly, for my presentation will be, this is the schedule for the next 4 meetings for the calendar year. So we're planning to meet once a quarter, every Monday, 9 a.m. Or I'm sorry, once a quarter on a Monday at 9 a.m. Not every Monday. We have a lot of meetings, but we don't need that many. And the reason why we put it this way instead of putting a specific date down too is that we wanted a lot of this structure to this committee to live on in perpetuity, so we could just have a regular cadence for these meetings for the years to come without having to put down the actual dates. So with that, that concludes my presentation on the committee structure. And I'm happy to answer any questions. I do believe all the dates are listed in the memo. Thank you, Stephanie. Okay, if there are no questions, I'll turn it over to.
Will we have like further breakdown later of just the committee itself and like the makeup and things like that? I didn't want to just throw questions out there that necessarily might be covered later.
Sorry, could you repeat that, please?
Will we be talking about the structure of the committee itself and things like that, like subcommittees and further later on? I don't want to jump ahead unnecessarily.
I believe we will, but as the different topics come forth to the committee, we'll always be discussing how we could further engage folks to talk about the things that we bring up. And in a little bit, we're going to start to dig into the strategic direction of the agency too and start to talk about some specific topics. Hopefully that answers your question.
Any other questions for Tony or Austin? All right.
Okay. So now we'll actually need to vote on the schedule, the calendar of meetings. So actually, Austin, if you could go to the next slide, I believe we have. Is that it or no? I guess we need a motion.
Do we have a slide for that or no? Or this is the slide? Okay, great. Yeah, I would entertain a motion then to approve the work plan and schedule, please.
I'll make the motion. It's Marissa Lewis.
Thank you, Marissa. Is there a second? I hope staff got that second. I think there were 3 seconds.
Yep, I second it.
Excellent.
Yeah. And I'll call the roll for votes, please. So if you could unmute when I call your name. Chairman Tucker.
Yes.
Vice Chair Kim Porter.
Aye.
Adam Ballard.
Aye.
Dion Bowe.
Aye.
Peter Kretikos.
Yes.
Chrissy DeLaurentis.
Yes.
Kendra Freeman.
Yes.
John Furr.
Yes.
Kevin Kramer.
Aye.
Marissa Lewis.
Yes.
Shannon Mcgee.
Yes.
Michael Myers.
Yes.
Obayi Reed.
Yes.
Darnell Shields.
Aye.
Jennifer Tammon.
Yes.
Michael Horsting.
Yes.
Tara Orban.
I'm ex officio,
That's
so.
right. Thank you. Pardon me.
Same for me, but I answered yes anyway.
The motion carries.
Fantastic. Thank you. Well, as everyone can see from this work plan and schedule, as proud Chicagoans, we make no small plans. So it's going to be some good work. It's going to be a lot of work. I know Austin and Tony are up for the task. Why don't we move to the next agenda item then, please? Let me turn it over to, is it Austin?
I'm actually going to start. So good morning, everyone. My name is Ryan Elke. Austin, if you want to move on to the next slide, we can get started. So like I said, my name is Ryan Elke. Thank you for having me this morning. And I'm a program management analyst here at CMAP. I've been here for about 8 months. And today we'll be having a discussion about the approaches that CMAP has identified to achieve its strategic goal for the regional economy focus area. So next slide, please. Before we get started, we're going to make sure that we're all on the same page about how we're going to approach this process today. So we're going to first establish some ground rules that we'll follow. Number one, share your ideas. Be willing to offer up your thoughts. This is a time for collaboration and a chance to weigh in on how CMAP will approach its work. CMAP is relying on members' expertise and experience to inform our strategic direction. We want to hear from everyone. Number two, actively listen. Considering what others are saying is vital to good collaboration. Be engaged even when you aren't speaking. Try not to think about what you're going to say next. Instead, pay close attention to who is speaking now and consider their contributions. Number three, respect others' perspectives and experiences. We all come to today's meeting with a variety of backgrounds, experience, and expertise. These differences in perspective and experience are valuable to informing how you view an issue. So we should respect what's unique about others. Number four, build off others' ideas. Take what other people have said and run with it. Think about how their ideas and yours might intersect. We want to say that it's perfectly okay to disagree with something that someone else might have said, but if you do, make sure you do it constructively and offer an alternative. The staff member's role today in this discussion is to guide the conversation, and your role as members is to discuss, to collaborate, and contribute your thoughts on CMAP's approaches to achieving its strategic direction goals. Next slide, please. So here we have the goal for the regional economy focus area and the objectives that will contribute towards reaching it. We want you to keep this goal in mind throughout the entire discussion. This is the ultimate change that we're hoping to see with our work. The goal for the regional economy focus area, again, is a robust and inclusive regional economy. To achieve this goal, CMAP will work for inclusive growth and to increase access to economic opportunities. The Regional Economy Committee will focus on where CMAP can leverage its resources to achieve these objectives. We'll look to the committee members to guide the agency, represent those affected by regional economy challenges and solutions, and connect the regional dots on economic initiatives. Next slide, please. So now I want to give a brief explanation for the approach that CMAP has taken in its strategic direction and to let you know the purpose of today's discussion. First, about the strategic direction. As you heard in the video, CMAP is using what's called a theory of change approach. This explains how our actions are causally linked to the outcomes we create. It's a way of seeing cause and effect in our activities. CMAP identified an overarching goal for each of its three focus areas of transportation, climate, and regional economy. Each goal has multiple objectives, which you saw on the previous slide, and those contribute to the realization of the goal. The goals and objectives are long-term outcomes that CMAP might not be directly responsible for, but plays a role in achieving in the region. The objectives are affected by outcomes, which is the highest level that CMAP has direct ownership of. These are the changes that come from the result of our activities. Today's session is a chance for the committee to provide input on the approaches that CMAP has created to let us know if our approach is accurate and what sort of indicators we should be measuring to track our performance. Next slide. So the next few slides are going to introduce the approaches, and this is how the structure of them will look. Each approach consists of an if and an and statement, which identify the results of activities within CMAP's control. Those are the things that we can do. Each approach also has a then statement, which is the outcome of those results. This is the level at which an observed change is the product of CMAP's activities. There's also a space on the right for CMAP to add performance measures to track progress, which your feedback will help inform. Next slide, please. So here is an example of how the approaches are structured for someone who wants to speak multiple languages. One of the objectives that would contribute towards reaching that long-term goal is to learn to speak Spanish fluently. The approach consists of the if and the and statement, which is progressively taking more classes and seeking out opportunities to improve. These are activities that we can control and we can perform ourselves. The work that is put into these activities will lead to the outcome of improving my Spanish skills, which is represented by the then statement. On the right, I can track my performance in reaching the then statement by measuring my grades and getting input from Spanish speakers about how I'm doing. Next slide, please. So for each of the approaches, staff is going to read them out loud a couple of times and then ask you to share your thoughts on them. The regional economy focus area has 5 approaches. Today, we're going to discuss 2 of them. We have a way of collecting feedback after the meeting, which I'll talk about after our discussion. So we'll be able to get your feedback on all of the approaches, but just want to let you know that today we're only going to be discussing 2 in the meeting. The discussion will be framed around the following questions for each of the approaches. Number 1, how well do the if and and statements explain how CMAP will achieve the then statement? Number 2, what do you suggest to make the statement clearer? And number 3, what performance measures should CMAP be tracking to validate progress towards achieving the then statement? Are there any questions before we get started? Then I will turn it over to Austin to run you through the approaches then.
Thanks, Ryan. As Ryan mentioned, CMAP's exec team has asked us to pressure test the ideas that are going to go into the agency's upcoming strategic direction. As a reminder, the regional economy's focus area has a goal of a robust and inclusive regional economy. This is the long-term outcome that we are hoping to achieve or influence. So CMAP may not have the jurisdiction or the capacity to implement the goal on our own, but we are involved with advancing progress towards it. We'll be discussing the first objective that CMAP has identified, which is an increased access to economic opportunity. So here is one approach to contribute to this objective. If we incorporate evidence-based tools into CMAP transportation investment decision-making to support and foster investment in communities affected by disinvestment and support state and local government in doing the same, and if we support communities affected by disinvestment with planning resources and implementation activities to plan, fund, and maintain transportation infrastructure, then areas of disinvestment will have increased access to CMAP transportation programming resources. So with that, we want to sort of begin the conversation with everyone here to sort of, like I said, pressure test some of these ideas and how well do these statements explain how CMAP will achieve our ultimate goal. I'll just sort of open that up to anyone with opinions.
This is Kevin Kramer. I'll just jump in. One thought off the bat. So access here, I'm assuming you're looking at access purely as transportation access, like can physically get to point A to point B, rather than like from a increased access to economic opportunity, increased, I increased my access to education and just my access physically or mentally, all of that to increase my opportunities that way. This seems like it's going in the direction of we're just here talking about transportation. Is that correct?
Here, I think so, yes, and at least in terms of CMAP's own transportation programs. However, I think that we can sort of complement those with some of the other barriers to access that would need to be addressed.
Okay.
I like to step in. I think it's a great start to an if and then statement. I think it incorporates much of what you need to do from our perspective. As you say, well, we can't actually initiate anything, we can set the ball rolling and put the influence on the people that can. So in looking at this if statement, if we can incorporate evidence-based tools, we want to show proof, right, that whatever decision-making that we suggest works has worked somewhere else. So you're not just wasting your investment. And I think that we definitely need to be suggesting how different regions are implementing their either grant funding, their budgets into improving access and actually improving the transportation infrastructure in these communities. And I think to say that you're also supporting and fostering investment doesn't only speak to jobs that people will be able to get to, but I think it also speaks to the innovation, technology, the construction work, and all of that that goes into improving those communities and jobs that people will have access to and exposure to. And yeah, I think that, we can measure our goal, or measure what we're saying by, ridership, jobs going up, people being able to get to different jobs in the community, maybe cars off the road, I don't know, different things like that. You can, look at the innovation and the infrastructure improvements that go on in those areas and count those as results and objectives and things that we can measure as well.
That's really helpful, Michael. I'm curious if anyone else has opinions on some of the potential performance measures. We've looked at a number of them over the years, whether it's total housing and transportation costs for different populations, or if it's time to quality jobs in terms of commutes. But curious if anyone else has other success measures or sort of criteria measures that might be factored in.
Actually, I have a bias concern. And that is that I've shared with CMAP staff some work that we've been doing independently, looking at how women are distributed across Cook County, and have seen in terms of our own work, and we've also looked at it from a disability perspective, and seen in our own work that women are actually majorities in neighborhoods across Cook County, and significant working age women are majorities in Cook County. It's particularly in neighborhoods that are predominantly Black and then also understood to be underinvested. And we've seen that the same pattern actually with respect to people with disabilities of different forms. And one of the issues that raises is in the context of transportation, that if our bias tends to be, I think, in terms of discussions around transportation, how do we get somebody from point A to some distant point in, distant location, point B, where there are jobs located, and don't think about the need for transportation that circulates within a given neighborhood. So that individuals have access to critical services, but also in terms of how that might relate to other sorts of economic investments where the job creation is more local. And the reason why this point about women in particular is important is because we do know that women carry the significantly greater share of the child care, family care burden, or responsibilities. I'm not sure it's burden from some points of view. I don't mean to make it punishing, but responsibilities, and so access to these kinds of things locally are really important, especially jobs as well. So how does transportation, so my concern is, again, is to watch out for a bias, and that bias is, get on a train in one location and go to a job 20 miles away. That's a couple hours commute each way, and doesn't work if you also have other family care responsibilities as well. So that's the one sort of proviso I have on this.
That's really helpful, Peter. I think we've seen through both our sidewalk inventory and as well as the My Daily Travel survey that it's not the access to opportunity needs to be not only the transportation and the commute itself, but also access to support services, if that is childcare or elder care, other measures. That's a really helpful note. Kendra, I think I saw that you added something to the chat. I wanted to see if you wanted to expound on it some.
I just wanted to point out, we often talk about evidence-based tools, but tools that are based in evidence are not always tested to see if they're equitable. So I think that's just an important thing to call out if we're really going to increase economic opportunity.
Great.
Hey, this is Obai. Thank you, Kendra, and the gentleman who spoke right before Kendra. A few things here. I would challenge us to not be limited by evidence-based tools. The transportation sector as a whole has embedded structural racism. It has not done a good job of operationalizing racial equity and mobility justice. So should we only limit the tools to those who have that have the evidence? There's some things that we could do that we may not be exploring. The vastness of the inequities, the severity of the inequities requires things that haven't been done. It requires some creativity and innovation. So we shouldn't be limited to things that have already been tested. We should be willing to try some things and see will they work to solve for inequities. I also want to just share a little more about these biases. There's biases at CMAP. So that underscores the importance of establishing ownership of the transportation planning processes in neighborhoods that we are targeting. We should be exploring how do we get CBOs and stakeholders at the neighborhood level to engage in this work as owners of the work, not as people that we're bringing plans to get their approval, people who are with us from the beginning and exploring what the needs are and what the strategies are to address those needs.
Thanks, everybody. Would you have a recommendation around how we can clarify the statement, if there are any adjustments to the language that you might suggest?
In real time, that may take a few. I'm happy to explore.
That's okay.
Share some more feedback. Yeah,
well, I mean, we'll tell us in a moment that there's a forum where you can provide some of this feedback after the fact.
All right, cool.
Great.
Austin, it would be helpful for me to understand what this committee and what CMAP can have an impact on or can reasonably measure before we talk about what changes we want to make and what these outcomes can be. And I'm thinking like making it more affordable, but like, do we have control over that is one. How many people are taking it to work? Unless we're relying on delayed government data, are you planning on going out there and doing primary research of who's taking transportation to work? So kind of what's the scope of what we can impact here? Because it might be that the only thing that we can do is measure how many people are riding it. And that's the way we're going to have to determine whether these, whether whatever work this committee and CMAP is doing in this area is working. And then one other piece, so that's one question. And then my other piece that hasn't been mentioned yet, but I know it's been an issue in the last couple of years and it's pandemic related, is that safety on public transit has been an issue that I've heard a lot of people cite as reasons why they don't want to utilize the existing public transit infrastructure. I don't know if that's because kind of there's been fewer people or I'm not, or it's due to other kind of economic concern. I'm not sure, but safety is an issue I'd like to add to the record about what people are concerned with in taking public transit.
Thanks, Marissa. I think it is closely tied to CMAP's traditional wheelhouse in terms of what we can do. Of course, we don't have perfect information or perfect control over all the things we would like to affect. But I like to think of our role as sort of in three buckets. First is data. We have access to a wealth of information around the transportation system that's often not available to others. We have the capacity to do analysis on that data or other resources and to make that analysis available to decision makers to sort of inform how they want to adjust the, say, the transit system or say transportation investments. And then we also have the ability to convene folks at the regional level to think about some of those issues of regional significance and what decisions they might want to be taking. And then, of course, there is the lion's share of the work, which is the transportation programming funds that we help to program, and therefore can sort of think about what some of those criteria might look like, what some of the, as we were mentioning, some of the success measures for the transportation system. And if we don't have the data readily at hand, then we can start thinking about what are the structures that would be required to put those in place. And then as for the safety issue, I think you will find a lot of agreement here at CMAP on those issues. And we do have a number of projects looking at how we can improve the safety of our transportation system. But I think it's important that we would want to try to improve safety as part of, again, what does access to economic opportunity mean? It's not just about the transportation, but it's also the access to the support services. It's access to sort of safe routes to work and school. Thank you. Other questions or comments?
I just want to say, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead, Tara.
Yeah, I just, again, great comments by Obai and Kendra. And I guess this is just kind of directed at CMAP. In looking at the approach on the left in where it says into the and, we support communities affected by disinvestment with planning resources and implementation activities. I guess to Obai's point, in terms of ownership of the planning process, I kind of thought that was CMAP's intent with that second part there, is that together with the communities, it's, the goal here would be CMAP would infuse resources in these communities where there haven't been, right, with having the locals at the table. Is that the intent of this approach? Because I think to Obai's comment, I think that's one of the things we're trying to do here, right?
I'm happy to pop in here for a second.
Ownership at the planning level, it's such a great comment. I want to make sure, I thought that was kind of the spirit of what was on the left, is kind of matching, working with the communities, match the need with the funding source so we can get some outcomes here that, are desirable for the community and for the region.
Yeah, I'll say that is certainly part of this thought process here, is that, we have sort of data analytics tools, but we also program a lot of federal dollars. Some of them we program directly ourselves, and some of them go through all the councils of mayors across the region here, but that we've seen some success in our previous role, or our previous work, which is another large body of our work, which is our technical assistance program, that, by giving a host of planners and planning staff time to a municipality to get them prepared to receive large infusions of federal dollars, to help them apply to invest in cook programs, that we are able to help support sort of increased access to these large federal dollars that are available to them that maybe communities haven't necessarily always had access to. But it's not the only way that we can help affect change. And I think to the points that were made earlier, we often are trying to sort of relook at the data that we have and be able to understand how we can better utilize that, but it does have to happen in partnership with communities. And I think understanding where and how, lots of things have changed over the past couple of years. And so I think we're looking to this committee to help us figure out, what does it mean to help change the way that we look at projects with community residents together, right? And how do transportation agencies specifically accept that change and recognize that, community may or may not want different elements that we as planners might think on paper would help solve problems.
Yeah, thanks for clearing that up, Erin. I think that was kind of the point as well. I also agree that, you can't just use straight evidence base of studies and rules, things that have done before. You have to use access to the data to create some evidence-based tools as well. And I think that means, they're saying engage in the community to get that tool built, and to get some more measured objectives out of people that we may not have spoken to before, because it may what a transportation improvement to them may not be the same as what it means to us. And it's not just about the public transportation, it's involving the streets and roads and access to that as well, and access to other things like the airports and just jobs as well. I don't know. I want to also understand more. So what, outside of, these types of conversations, will this committee be meeting to tackle some of these things and come up with programs utilizing CMAP's resources to get information, to get data, to do some research?
I think both in our previous iteration and now in this sort of restructured committee format, we both want to get sort of a strategic direction from the committee to say where should the agency be using its tools to greatest effect, but then also getting much more direct staff feedback on some of those analyses, some of the data runs that we've done to sort of think about what does the evidence base need to look like so that we can get decision makers to sort of adopt the recommendations that are both in the On to 2050 plan and then are continuing to be developed here at CMAP. And I think that can come in a number of different ways. One can be the in-house data and analysis capacity that I was mentioning earlier, but it also could be helping us to think about our public engagement or how to not only provide capacity building to local communities, but also to recognize the capacity that is there, recognize the voice that is often unheard. And I think that's part of what we want from the committee is both that very high level strategic direction, but also direct staff feedback as well.
I think too, this is, if I could weigh in again, is the diversity of the voices that we have around the table here. And really the goal of us reformatting and reframing how our committees were aligned on some of this work is to have you help us think about what we might be doing differently. I think like Peter was mentioning some of the biases in the work that we have done previously and how we might sort of utilize our collective voice or understanding, or, can we work at a municipality, right? How should we be talking to municipalities about this work? And Darnell, when you're in a neighborhood, right, what rings true when we're talking about some of these big picture technical tools that we have, or should we be doing something different? So I think, again, as I look around at the virtual room here, right, I think this is exactly the type of discussion we want to have here. And whether we go into detail on the technical tools or the engagement processes or the overall messaging and communications of why it's important for our transportation system to connect locally and to regional employers, I think, those are exactly the discussions that we want to have here.
I was going to go back to some of the comments in the chat and see if anyone wanted to expound on those, but I didn't want to cut off anyone if they have something they wanted to add to this last point.
This is Dan. I wholeheartedly agree with all of the comments. There are implicit biases whenever we're going into communities to start planning processes, so I won't belabor that. Obai shared a local resource. I shared Race Forward resource. I just think that, as a collective group, we should be more thoughtful about the work as we're going into communities and how this may impact the communities as they are not planners or transportation planners or economic development planners, etc. So there are a couple of tools that both Obai and I dropped in the link that I suggest that you all read. I think it would be very helpful.
Thanks, Dion. We'll make sure to share those resources both here in CMAP and to anyone else who on the call who would like to see them. John, I saw that you added a comment around shifting from a focus on access to a focus on receiving resources. I wanted to see if you had any additional comments.
Sure. It's just generally, I think the way this is framed is that these communities have the ability to apply for and seek resources, rather than saying, how do we look at communities and better understand what federal investments do they have, what local resources do they have, and where can CMAP more intentionally target direct investments in those communities to address these types of gaps. I think we look at the education funding shifts in our state. We've kind of gone from competitive processes or just applying funding equally to really saying, like, where do, in that scenario, state dollars sort of help to target the equity gaps. from federal and from local funds. I think in the transportation space, you can take a similar review to see where can CMAP most intentionally direct its funds to address the equity challenges that result from existing federal and local funding streams.
Thank you. I think that is actually a perfect segue. I don't want to cut off this great conversation, but also want to touch on the second objective that we wanted to discuss today, really focused around, again, increasing access to economic opportunities. So just to read this out for you, if we identify structural barriers to economic opportunity and propose and support solutions, and we increase implementer awareness and support an increased focus on reducing structural barriers for communities affected by disinvestment, then communities affected by disinvestment will have greater access and the tools to maximize economic opportunities. So again, we want to sort of pressure test some of these ideas, and I think they get to some of the comments that have been made so far, but wanted to see if anyone has additional thoughts to share.
You know, I'm never shy. I think there's a sort of a false equivalency between reducing barriers and having a truly equity or inclusive and equitable focus. Because achieving equity isn't necessarily by eliminating barriers alone. It is also it's also required that there needs to be some affirmative activities that that actually level the playing fields between different between those that have faced the consequences of persistent bias and discrimination, and those that have enjoyed things without having to deal with that. So it's a little bit like I think what John was kind of getting at. And it's just not enough to say everybody has the same opportunities. It needs to be more. And again, I caution that we I just have some concerns that that generally speaking, government tends to think in terms of making sure that that groups aren't unduly punished and not think or punished period, and not think forward in terms of what are the sort of the essential requirements that actually do put all people on a par with each other.
Yeah, if I can add something here, I think the interesting thing is that it seems, and a lot of this has been said in different ways, but I think that there's this assumption that in terms of identifying barriers, what folks would actually have access to, what they could lend in terms of perspective or ideal around what these barriers could actually be. There's this assumption that everybody has the same understanding in terms of the implications to transportation on their access to economic opportunity. And if we're really talking about equity, like how are we, or is there a way to address that in terms of, it was mentioned about building the communities or building their capacity to actually inform on the decision making around these things. But that's really subjective to everybody's understanding of what those implications actually are. And so how can we actually foster opportunity for the understanding across the board for everybody to have a common understanding around what these implications actually are, so that regardless of how you come to it, you know, relatively, we're able to all lend to it based on our own experience and based on, you know, the place and how that whatever transportation system, whether it be public, you know, mobile, or what have you, is affecting them. I mean, if you're thinking about it regionally, because it varies across the region. And then it varies, especially as you think about these different communities that have been affected by disinvestment.
I'm curious, Darnell, if you would say it is a question of public education around some of the implications around these, you know, often very in the weeds transportation programming decisions, or if it's also some shifts in how we take in information and how well we are at listening and hearing to what people are telling us are the implications of these decisions. I'm curious if it's a two-way.
I think it's actually both. I mean, it's definitely the public education. That's the to me the most paramount. I mean, case in point, I'll put an example like this. You know, I'm in the Austin community. I'm on the west side of Chicago, in a disinvested area of Chicago, right? And folks understanding, or you know, one could say maybe the understanding around some of the implications to barriers in terms of transportation, to access to education, to whether it's public safety, or even to getting access to, from a transportation standpoint, to some of the better, more higher paying jobs, right? People's understanding of what is actually preventing them from doing one or the other, it could vary across the board, just based on, you know, how much folks actually are aware of, you know, what is actually creating that situation and how transportation lends to that. You know, beyond, you know, hey, the distance is one thing, but I mean, is it access to a public transit line that is, you know, blocks away from your house versus it being a mile or a mile and a half away? You know, it's things like that you know, I think that just, you know, people having more of a general understanding of, you know, how that barrier actually affects them, whether or not they know it is actually a barrier. From that standpoint, I think that whereas in another community, depending on, you know, what the makeup is of that community, right, the understanding might be totally different. Folks might really be able to zero in on, you know, those types of things and know how to articulate what that challenge is.
Thank you for that, Darnell. And even if you have access to a train station, then you have questions of sort of frequency and speed and reliability that people may not even pick up on sometimes. Any other questions or comments?
This is Tiffany. I also think that the piece around implementer awareness and support and increasing that, I just wonder, how can we think about the people who also have resources for investment, and where does the, you know, like, where does that come in? Because I totally love what Darnell was talking about the education awareness for people to be able to speak up about the barriers and solutions for that. But then I think marrying that to the people with resources and make the decisions on where those resources go for investment. So I feel like there might be a bigger gap here to get to your then statement between those two, the if and statements in this particular case. I feel like there needs to be a lot more emphasis, or a lot of emphasis, I don't want to say more, but like breaking down, how do we get to the people with the resources and the ability to implement those solutions?
Would you think that is a second and statement? What might that look like?
Yeah, like I think it needs to be not just increasing awareness and supporting an increased focus on reducing the barriers, but also thinking about what disinvestment has meant and having a separate statement about, impacting disinvestment specifically. So reinvestment maybe is a way to say it. Like there needs to be some specificity around what reinvestment means or investment period.
Okay.
Some kind of priority, some word about prioritizing.
Right.
The emphasis of reinvestment. And I think to speak more so on the people with the resources, some statement in here that not only ties to the community doing something to improve itself or utilizing the resources to help improve itself, but those stakeholders like a CTA or that kind of entity, making sure that we, strategize or prioritize, looking at where they're lacking in this process and where they can do a lot better to engage the community and utilize their resources to help inform and educate the people about what's going on, or how we can better suggest that they do that.
I think the question of prioritization is really interesting. We've had a number of projects over the years, attempts at trying to define disinvested areas or another sort of area of prioritized investment. And I think one of the questions we keep coming back to is what is the best way of identifying and defining those areas so that not only CMAP, but then a lot of our implementing partners agree on where some of those areas might be. I'm curious if anyone has opinions around what those measures might be, what some of those defining features might be.
I think access to, someone was saying earlier, like access to public transportation, the time it takes you to get to a rail line is a major measure across the world. Can you get to a rail station within a certain amount of feet of a retail or a home or things like that, or your job? Maybe the effect of the air quality and I don't know, cars on the road, decreasing the cars on the road.
Austin, can you hear me?
Yes.
If I may, also thinking about it from more of a local planning perspective too, I'm also thinking about our communities, disinfested populations within larger suburban context within the region. And I'm struggling to think about measured by. Sidebar, will these slides be available to us to really think about and email our comments to at a later date? You may have said that, so I apologize beforehand.
Yes, I think once we wrap up this conversation, Ryan will come in and tell us about a forum where you can sort of dwell on these ideas. They're very large, very heady ideas. And so when you have a little bit more time, you can provide further feedback.
Thank you, because I'm thinking about tools. Because I'm out here in the western suburbs and I have pockets of disinvested areas that happen to be minority. And when you're in a suburban context, when the greater community has money and they have cars and they don't think about job creation. And that is something that I continue to push and struggle for. When you have economic opportunities locally, but you don't have transportation connectivity and metro or a metro station, we don't have the ability to say we have a CTA station here. And so I'm trying to think about it much more regionally, as well as how are our populations that, particularly that are minority communities that are now moving out into these suburbs, you're finding more and more that's the case, occupying many of our rental developments without access to transportation, without sidewalk connectivity. And those of us that are working in that local planning context, we're pushing to say, hey, we need a sidewalk here. But when you have a neighbor or a resident that says, I don't want a sidewalk, I haven't had a sidewalk in 30 years, why would I want one now? If I want to walk, I walk on a trail. I don't need to walk up and down the street. And so these are things that we're also battling a lot in some of these suburban contexts as well, when you start to think about this much more regionally.
That's a really helpful note, Kimberly. Thank you.
Hey, this is Obai again. Increasing implementer awareness and also support for an increased focus on reducing structural barriers. It doesn't feel like that goes far enough. The challenges we face in transportation are embedded. I mean, they're operationalized. It's how the sector exists and does this work. I think we need to go a little further and perhaps focus on establishing policies that DOTs and cities have to adhere to dismantle some of those structural barriers. And we should even go as far as requiring those policies being adhered to in order to get funding from CMAP and perhaps IDOT. I think just awareness is not enough. We got to go a lot further and go a lot deeper to address structural barriers.
Oh, but I'm curious if you would say that over the last 2 to 3 years, we've seen enough of a shift in awareness. It's sort of like, no, we have awareness in place now. We need to take the next step, or whether there's additional awareness building that you think we need to do.
There has been a huge shift in awareness. I don't know that we should avoid the awareness work. I still think a lot of people need to understand the inequities, the severity of the inequities, and the root causes of those inequities, and how that's embedded in our sector and transportation. And those who are aware, awareness doesn't translate into new policies or new ways of operating. So whether people are aware or not, it doesn't matter. We need policies to shift how the sector execute its work.
Great, thank you. Any other comments or opinions at this time? Okay, seeing none. Well, I want to thank you again for this really robust conversation. I think these are the kinds of discussions that we hope to be having in the committee, and it's great in this sort of first inaugural meeting that we get to start off on a great foot. So I think with that, I'll hand it back over to Ryan briefly to tell us a little bit more about how you can continue to provide feedback.
Thanks, Austin. Yes, and thank you to everyone for the discussion today, for participating and providing some input into CMAP strategic direction. We really appreciate it. So as Austin said, following the meeting, we'll be sending everyone a link via email to provide feedback on the approaches for the focus area. The feedback form will have all the regional economy approaches, which are also in the meeting packet for today, so you can read those when you get a chance. The form will have the same questions that we asked today about how well the approach lays out a course of action, how might we clarify it, and how can we measure it. As Austin said, let this discussion kick around in your head for a little bit, then come back and revisit the approaches and the measures. Then after a few days, go ahead and complete the feedback form, and make sure to include any new thoughts that come into your head, or anything else you think we should take into consideration. Once we've received your feedback, we'll go ahead and review what's been submitted and incorporate your thoughts into our next steps of our strategic planning. We're asking everyone to submit the form by April 13th, which will give you plenty of time to think about our discussion today, come up with new ideas, and fill out the actual form, which will all be online and will be sent out to your emails. So that, I believe, concludes it. Just thanks again for everyone for your discussion, and I'll kick it back over to the committee.
Great. Thank you, Ryan. There were a couple of quick questions, I think, in the chat. I didn't know if staff want to address those or address them offline.
I'll pop in. This is Amy McEwen, Chief of Staff. This is a public body, so we have to be super cautious and careful, and we can certainly come up with other ways for you to interact with one another. But even digital interaction needs to be done in an open forum to meet our responsibilities for the Open Meetings Act. So we can look into ways that you guys can interact with one another more with these items. But on the actual form, again, that has to be able to be provided transparently back to our public.
Great, thank you, Amy, for that. Appreciate that. I know I started the meeting by saying we had this incredible group. I think you did not let any of us down. You clearly have not been chosen to serve on this committee because you're shy, and we welcome that participation in that in the continued conversation. I thought this was terrific. So is there any new business to come before the committee today? All right. Yes, go ahead.
I'm sorry. I know you said that we have to hold our meetings in public. And I was assuming that we would be able to, come to CMAP's offices once everything is opening back up to have meetings or engage the staff or research or whatever. Is that also things that we would have to announce that we're doing or show, or like a meeting day, and we would just show it on the schedule?
I'll be dangerous here and answer the question. I believe that's correct. We will be subject to the Open Meetings Act. And I do think the intention is at some point to get back in person. Would love to see everybody in 3 dimensions. Austin or Tony, did you have anything to add to that?
I do not have anything to add. You are correct. Actually, I will add one thing, that we do plan on bringing all the feedback that we receive through the form back to this committee at the next meeting too, to discuss.
A great point. Thank you for that, Tony. Any other questions or any other new business today? All right, hearing none, we're going to move on. Oh, I'm sorry, was there somebody there? I'm sorry. Okay. Hearing none, we're going to move on to the next agenda item, public comment. Have we received any public comment prior to the meeting?
Good morning. This is Garland Armstrong and my wife Heather Armstrong, formerly of Des Plaines, Illinois, now living in Des Moines, Iowa. How's everybody doing in the Chicagoland area?
Great. We're doing
good. Doing good, sir.
Yep. And we're former CMAP. We're former CMAP committees. We used to be on the Housing Committee and the Citizen Advisory Committee meeting, and we were former PACE ADA Advisory Committee members for PACE, and then METRA, and I was a CTA ADA Advisory Committee, and my wife was an RTA ADA Advisory Committee, and then we used to belong to Access Living, and then we volunteered for walk events. So just want you to know that I saw some familiar faces on Zoom, and we seen them, and we was there before we left Illinois. So, and I just want y'all to know that I'm on the Des Moines Access Advisory Board here, and we're doing well here in Des Moines. So, and my wife wanted to say something.
Yeah. Hi, this is Heather Armstrong. I want to say, with the gas being so high, I think if people need to start riding their bike and taking public transit everywhere. Are you there?
Yeah, we are. Heather and Garland, thank you so much for joining us, and absolutely agree about let's start getting out on our bikes and start taking mass transportation again. Amen. It's good to hear from both of you, and so happy to hear you're doing well. Thank you for joining us today. Truly appreciate it.
Yeah,
our pleasure.
And also to make sure that we need to make sure that in the Chicagoland area, make sure that every community has access to it, because there are some who are, like they said, like Peter says, they're some disconnected, and they need to get access to it so they can be implemented and be in touch with everything what they need. So keep up the good work and make sure that they get it, and don't let the ADA or other general public let down.
Thank you again, and I hope you both stay well. Great to hear from both of you. All
right, and
our pleasure.
And we'll hear from you again soon.
Our pleasure.
Thank you, Heather. Thank you, Garland.
Our pleasure.
Thank you. Is there any other public comment, or to staff, was there anything submitted prior to the meeting?
No, we haven't received any.
And last call for any other public comment. All right. Next item of business. The next meeting is May 23rd. Mark your calendars. I think calendar items have already gone out. If not, I'm sure that staff will get those out to everyone. Any questions about the next meeting? If you know you can't make a meeting, if you can just let staff know ahead of time, that'd be fabulous. We won't sit around waiting for you. Any questions about the next meeting? All right. If there's no other business to come before, I'm sorry, did somebody have a question?
I have June 27th on my calendar. Is that not right?
We have adjusted some of the dates so that we are better aligned with all of CMAP's committees, so we will get corrected calendar invites out to everyone promptly.
Okay, thank you.
All right, great, thanks. Yeah, these meetings are held at a time so it can then feed into the other CMAP process as well. All right, if there's no other business to come before the committee today, we're adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Bob, quick question. I'm sorry, before you adjourn, I think Mike had it. Michael Myers had a question. I have that same question. Will it be in person?
Great question. Great question.
That is largely dependent on the governor's disaster declaration, and we will try our best to accommodate both remote as long as we can and are able to, and then once we move back towards in person, we will try to provide a hybrid option for at least some members to be able to join remotely.
Thank you.
I know we're anxious to see your new digs in the beautiful new renovated post office building. So, all right. Then with that, hearing nothing else, we're adjourned. Have a great week, everyone. I know we'll be seeing you soon. Take care.